All right, guys, welcome back. It is Punt Factor here, bringing you all the green-white decks. So I have a little bit of an update here. So I took good old Value Town to an SCG event and didn't do so hot. So honestly, there were a couple games where draws were a factor, whatever. That's going to be the case with any deck. Honestly, right now, the problem with the format, it is way too fast. And I know everyone's been saying that, Value Town doesn't have enough interaction, et cetera, et cetera. And, I agreed with them to a certain degree. But pre-Modern Horizons, the only deck that would give us, I mean, there was quite a few decks that gave us fits. But the one, being Arclight Phoenix was, that was probably our toughest, in my opinion. It was a very tough matchup. Everything else, I kind of figured out enough of a way to have a game against them. And honestly, I felt good with the deck choice. Like, pre-Modern Horizons, I felt good with the deck choice. I felt good where the meta was at. Playing against Dredge, I had a good game plan. Blue-white control was always really tough, but that's just going to be the case with a mid-range deck. So, and there was a couple things, if blue-white, I was thinking anyway at that time that if blue-white became a little more popular, I could dedicate some sideboard slots to it in the way of Thrun or in the way of Carnage Tyrant, just kind of being able to, find it, essentially. Because those games go long anyway, so you're going to see a lot of cards, especially with all the shuffle effects from Knight of the Courser. That was my thought process. Now, bringing it into Modern Horizons, we saw Hogak become a really big part of the game. And that deck, everyone knows that deck is completely busted, but that still doesn't change the fact that, we have to prepare for it. And I had some games against Hogak. I did okay. It's definitely not, not a deck that was a win by any stretch. But I felt like I had a game plan against them. The problem that I found being in an event like that is, your game plan can't just work like half the time or 45% of the time. And what happens if your game plan just does not, you don't see the cards you need? And that's the case. This was pre-London Mulligan, obviously. So, you can't really maul yourself to oblivion, because if you do that, then you're just going to get so far behind, on cards that Hogak or any deck that you are mulliganing into oblivion to try to find hate for is just going to eventually outvalue you. In some cases, against artifact strategies, finding that Stony Silence or whatever is worth it. You can get yourself back in the game, provided they don't have a way to remove it. But not against decks like Hogak. Also not against decks like Phoenix, where, Aria of the Flame became a thing. I just found that, after Modern Horizons came out, Value Town is... I even hate to say that it's completely dead, but it's definitely not well positioned by any stretch in its kind of current iteration. Now, Giver of Runes is a super sweet card, and I think people can still brew like a Value Town-esque style of deck. We do also have Eladamri's Call, which I think helps the deck out a lot. But you kind of have to ask yourself, if you're going to go that sort of mid-range route, I would personally, if I were to take Value Town and keep trying to push it, which I'm going to, I'm just taking a break for it. I was a little disheartened. But if I am going to continue to try to push this deck, I would probably want to almost drop the ramp entirely from the deck. And I would want to go more interaction. It would honestly end up being like an Abzan build where I would probably run like 4 Inquisitions, 3 Thoughtseizes in this slot, and then I would jam things in. Like, I would take out Dramoka's Command, maybe make this like, an Abrupt Decay, an Assassin's Trophy. I could toss that in there. I like the creature package, and while I was like disheartened overall from the deck after that event, I still found myself in games that I was able to kind of slow everything down and play that grindy game. I mean, against humans, I 2-0'd twice. I went back-to-back humans, and it was a sweep twice. With the addition of Blast Zone in the deck, it's super... I mean, that card is incredible against humans, and I just, eventually ground them out. So in games where you can kind of slow down your opponent's plan, I think this deck does really well. I'm also impressed with this deck still against like Green-Black Rock and Jund and those mid-range strategies. I think this deck is just fantastic. The problem is, in its current form, we have no way of slowing down what they're trying to do. Against Hogak, you're really hoping to get out a Reliquary so you can Bajuka Bog them at some point. Ideally when they're trying to go off. That's often too slow. So before you get a Night Out, because it just is too slow, before you get a Night Out, you're hoping to have a path that you can hold up. So when they try to drop a Hogak, you can slam a path. Or you're hoping to, also have a Night of Autumn. So when they drop their Altar of Dementia, you're able to kind of disrupt that as well. Now, post-board, we get a little bit better here. We are able to bring in our Remorseful Clerics and take out some of our dead cards. And, things like that help. I brought in like Eldamri's Call, a couple Remorseful Clerics, etc. But we're just too slow. So when I start focusing back on this deck, which it's going to be a minute, I just need to play something else for a little bit and just kind of get into the tank with this deck and go into the lab. Like I said, it's going to change a lot. And I think the start is going to be, jumping into Abzan and rocking some early interaction with Thoughtseize and Inquisition. And if I do something like that, I'll probably end up changing the voice of research. See, I hate to get rid of voices, and I know, and I've talked about this in length a lot, where a lot of people are so down on Voice of Resurgence, but I think this is kind of the mid-range breaker. This card and Scavenging Ooze in the mid-range decks that we can face, it's kind of the breaker for them. But we could drop some number of creatures here, and at that point we can bring in Tarmogoyfs to kind of bring our curve down a little bit. So a little heavier on the 2-drop slot here, remove some of these more situational cards, and that's probably where I would end up. But yeah, that was pretty much the experience there. So anyway, with that being said, this is a deck that kind of cropped up over after Modern Horizons, and it's a lot of fun. Everyone knows the Druid combo, or the Devoted Druid Vizier combo, and it got some new toys here. So I decided that I am going to kind of jam this and tweak it because I think it has a long way to go yet. I definitely don't think this is the best version of the deck. You'll note that I'm still running the chords and not Devastation. Honestly, I'm not going to pay $100 a playset for a virtual card. So I'm still on the Court of Calling plan. But this, Incubation is a sweet card. It definitely helps out. It gives you that additional like 1-drop to try to find a key piece. Also, Giver of Runes. Honestly, this thing just acts as a removal magnet. That's kind of what you want. Like, you drop this and they have to remove it. So it makes your opponent have 2 pieces of removal to kind of disrupt what you are doing. You'll notice I'm running 1 Shalai here. When I ran this deck, I have some experience with the old version of this deck that I used to jam on here. I always ran a Shalai in the sideboard, and I also had a version where Shalai was in the main. Well, Shalai got so much better with Giver of Runes because if you get Giver out and you're able to get a Shalai, they just can't target anything on your board, like ever. They need a sweeper effect in order to do that. And when you're able to pump your creatures, hopefully out of like anger range, things of that nature, it gets out of hand really quickly. And then obviously you can just swing in with Shalai, hold everything else back to block. If they tap out, or they don't swing in first before they play something, you're able to just like protect something, chump it. Your thing doesn't die. They don't get through. It's fantastic. It's such a great card. Obviously, Eladamri's Reach. It's a very cheap instant, which is really sweet. Allows us to kind of search up what we're trying to do. We have blue in here, so we can cast the backside of this Incubation, Incongruity, which is also just a great kind of removal card. I have 2 Postmortem Lunges in here, and this version is really all-in combo. I was sort of debating on going the all-in combo route, or if I wanted to do like an Abzan sort of Knight Company. This is more of the older style that we're kind of used to seeing, which I might sort of get back to. After testing out some of these newer additions, I would like to get sort of a mid-range plan built in, but right now we're just kind of jamming the straight combo here. In the sideboard, I have a Forge Tender, just a fantastic card. I have a decent chunk of interaction in the form of Path. A lot of the time, post board, I'll bring in like, a couple Scoozes, some random hate card, and even like Knight of Autumn, and I'll sort of like go down the incubations and cut a lot of my sort of combo, not combo enablers, but search effects and tutor effects. And I'll go like super heavy mid-range. And in those games, I'll shoot for like a Shalai Giver sort of combo. And I don't even care if I have the infinite mana or not, because that just breaks up any mid-range sort of strategy they're trying to go for. Completely shuts off Liliana the Veil, which is sweet. So, yeah, I super dig it. But anyway, let's jump into a game here. We're just going to do a practice game. I don't want to spend a bunch of money until I have a list down that I want. So sorry I got a little long-winded, but I wanted to explain the reasoning behind playing something a little different today. Okay, so we have... This is a great hand. We actually have ways. We have a turn 1 play. We have 2 pieces of the combo. So we're really here. We're looking for a Vizier. So I'm definitely going to keep it. And I'll go ahead and just shock this in. See if we can find a Vizier. The first 5, there's a Vizier. So we're going to go ahead and take that. So we are going to have a turn 3 here if our opponent is also a linear strategy. I don't know what we're playing against, so let's just go ahead and snag... Let's just snag a forest. The nice thing pre-board, we don't have a lot of like... Alright. So apparently we had it. The nice thing pre-board, we don't have a lot of, actually, if any, black spells. So we don't really have to like prioritize fetching an Overgrown Tomb or anything. So we don't know what our opponent's on. We know they're on black-red. We know they're on black-red. Do we think they're a graveyard strategy? It's very possible. I almost want to say we cut a lunch and we cut. You know what? Let's keep that in. Let's cut a Duskwatch. Just because I don't know really what they're doing, I hate to dilute our plan too much. But I want to have another like sort of mid-range threat in the form of skews. They also had red, so they could be playing some burn, which is like that life gain's always good. So I kind of think we just go like that. Yeah, I don't want to go too heavy on the removal just because we don't know what they're up to. And, you know, apparently they're either a linear deck and they knew that we had it. Why is my mouse super slow? All right, so let's see this hand. Well, my mouse is like so slow. Okay. I think this hand's really quite good. I think it's a definite keep. Seriously, I have no idea what happened to my mouse. It's getting a little better. I have like all these buttons on my mouse. Okay. It's a Gobo deck. So there's another small little part of the puzzle here. So let's go ahead. I hate to shock this in, but we're going to. And we're going to start with a giver. If we can get to... Okay. That's fine. That's 3 damage that didn't go to our face. I mean, just think we would be down to 13 right now. It's another giver. So we can go ahead and play giver. I don't want to shock. Let's play a noble. So next turn, let's see what happens. I was going to say, if our creatures live, he might sack this to blow up the giver. That's fine. We'll go ahead and take 1. But do you see how much work that card does in a deck like this? It's awesome. So why don't we... Let's think this through. Why don't we start with Incubation? Vizier we just want to keep in our hand. We drop that with a Druid. We have the mana. We're not going to be able to get to Shalai this turn anyway, right? So let's see what we can find here. There's a Devoted Druid. I don't even think we want to cast the Druid. I think I want to ensure that we can play a Shalai. Because unless he removes both of our mana dorks... And I just didn't want to shock in. That was kind of the problem. Like, I could have shocked in, played a Druid, but then we'd be down to 12. And I just didn't want to drop that low. So battlefield, search your library for a goblin card, reveal it, put it into your hand. Okay. That's fine. Gonna drink my slushy like I'm 6 years old. Goblin Chain Whirler, huh? That's a card. Okay. Two, three, four. I think we definitely just run out the Shalai here. Make them sad. So now we're actually looking to hook up the combo. Because we hook up the combo, we make Shalai huge. So we lose our dorks, which is fine. He can't really swing into this. He could bolt. He could bolt. Blue, whenever going, it gets +2, +0 until the end of turn. Okay. Alright, so he has one card in hand. Why don't we try to go Druid here? Hold back. There's the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put all goblin cards reveal this way into your hand. Okay, so he refills his hand. That's a sweet card. So this thing's going to be massive. So 2, 4, 6 be a 7, 8, 9. We'd be at 4. This thing has haste. We'd be at 2. Alright, so let's see what this thing gets. 9. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, I did not put that into the equation. But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's fine because we have the kill, right? We just go Vizier, and we'll still have 2 white sources. We need 2 white sources. So we're just going to go ahead. Did he play a land this turn? I can't remember. So we'll get blown out if he can get rid of our Druid, and then I think we just lose. So we go Vizier. We go Eldamri's Call. Actually, the nice thing is with Eldamri's Call, we can just get Walking Ballista. Just click through this. Cool. We got there against some goblins. Yeah, so we can see, like, how important was Giver of Runes there. You know, just such a good card. A lot of good additions to this deck. The games I really enjoy with this deck are games where you do get disrupted. There's a lot of really, once you know what you're playing against, you know, kind of cool things you can bring in. I also like how, kind of how just versatile you can make your sideboard, your silver bullets. Collector Oof is sweet. and you can so very consistently get these cards from your sideboard just with all of the tutor effects we have. I mean, we're running 12 tutor effects, excluding Postmortem Lunch, and once the Devastation, Finale of Devastation kind of drops in price, I'll be snagging that, which is just, basically Postmortem Lunge plus Court of Calling for cheaper, which is really sweet. Minus the fact that they don't get haste. That's why I like this card. You can just kind of kill somebody out of nowhere. But, yeah, guys, so that's this deck. I'm probably going to be streaming this one for a while, just to tweak it, just to get better. I don't think I want all 4 incubations. I'm not entirely sure, though. I'm not going to really change much until I see how these cards play over a solid 25 to 50 games. And then I'll start tweaking. Now, the sideboard will probably change, just depending on sort of what happens with the meta after M20 drops. If anything happens, I might not need as much removal, etc. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry I sort of ranted for a while on the value town here. But I was very, very sad. But we will come back to this, and it'll probably just be an Absian version of sorts. And I am looking forward to that. I just need a break for a hot minute. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Punt Factor bringing you all the green-white. Take care, guys.